Osa stood at the corner of the party hall, wiping sweat from her brow while serving drinks with a forced smile. She had spent weeks planning her son Tovy's 5th birthday, but today, as her in-laws whispered and called her just the hired help, her heart cracked silently, but none of them knew. Her husband Voyu was about to take the mic, and his next words would make the whole room freeze and flip their world upside down. Osa was a simple and kind woman, always working hard and putting her family first. She had married Voyu, a rich man, whose family never really accepted her. They thought she was too poor, too local, too village for their high-class standards. But Osa never gave up. She believed that if she showed them love and respect, one day they would welcome her as one of their own. So, when her little son Tovy turned 5, Osa put her whole heart into planning a big, beautiful birthday party. She hoped this day would change everything. Maybe today her in-laws would finally see her differently. The party hall was decorated with bright colours, balloons and lights. Osa had spent weeks making sure everything was perfect. As the guests started arriving, she smiled and served them food and drinks, running around to make sure everyone was happy. But instead of praise, the whispers began. Her sisters-in-law looked at her from head to toe and laughed quietly at her simple dress. One of them said, "Look at her, still dressing like she's in the village." Others joined in the mocking, their words sharp like knives. Some of the rich guests didn't even recognize her as the host's wife. They saw her carrying trays and assumed she was just one of the hired helpers. "Who's the new maid?" someone asked with a smirk. Osa heard every word, but she kept smiling, even though her heart was breaking inside. She had dreamed that this party would bring her respect. But now, as the whispers grew louder, she felt smaller and smaller. No matter how hard she tried, it seemed like nothing was ever enough for these people. And deep inside, a storm was starting to build. As the party went on, the whispers about Osa didn't stop. They got even worse. People laughed behind her back while she served them with a smile that was slowly fading. But then, something happened that cut deeper than any whisper. One of Voyu's aunts, a loud and proud woman, stood up right in front of everyone and pointed at Osa. With a smirk on her face, she said loudly, "Who let the maid handle the cake?" The room went silent for a moment, and then some guests laughed. Their laughter echoed in Osa's ears like thunder. She felt her face burn with shame. This was supposed to be her son's special day, but here she was, being called a servant in front of everyone. But the worst pain came next. Little Tovy, her sweet 5-year-old boy, stood close by and heard everything. His innocent eyes looked up at his mother, confused and hurt. In his tiny voice, he asked, "Mama, are you the servant?" Osa's heart broke into pieces right there. All her strength, all her hope for this day, crumbled. She couldn't even answer her son. Her throat felt tight, and her eyes filled with tears. She knew she couldn't let him see her cry. Not today, not at his birthday party. So, without saying a word, Osa turned and hurried to the kitchen. As soon as she stepped inside, away from the crowd, the tears poured out. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly so no one would hear. Her chest felt heavy, and her legs felt weak. She leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to stop the pain that felt like it was choking her. In that small kitchen, Osa stood alone, fighting to gather the pieces of her broken heart. She wiped her tears quickly, telling herself to be strong. She had to go back out there. But deep inside, something had changed. The pain was too much this time, and she knew she couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Voyu was busy at the front of the party hall, shaking hands with important guests and smiling for photos. He was proud that so many big people had come for his son's birthday. But then, he started to notice something strange. The air in the room felt heavy, and there were whispers everywhere. People weren't just chatting, they were gossiping. He could feel it. And when he looked around, he suddenly realized something that made his heart skip. Where was Osa? His wife, the one who worked so hard to make this party happen, was nowhere to be seen. She had been serving and smiling before, but now she had vanished. A small worry started growing inside him. He walked through the hall, past groups of people who quickly looked away when he passed. Their fake smiles couldn't hide the fact that they were talking about something or someone. And then, as he moved closer to where his family was gathered, he heard words that made his blood boil. His own mother, the woman who raised him, was speaking with poison in her voice. She said loudly, "That Osa is nothing but a disgrace. A village girl who married up and thinks she belongs here." Voyu froze. The words hit him like a slap. His mother's face was full of pride, as if she had just said something clever. And around her, his sisters and aunts were nodding and laughing, agreeing with her. In that moment, something inside Voyu cracked. Rage, sharp and burning, filled his chest. But along with the anger came something else. Guilt. Deep, heavy guilt. How had he not seen this before? How had he been so blind while his wife was being treated like trash by the people he called family? He thought about Osa, the woman who left everything behind to be with him, the woman who had stood by him through thick and thin, who loved him and their son with all her heart. And now, at the party meant to celebrate their child, she was being humiliated, and he had done nothing to protect her. His fists clenched at his sides, and shame washed over him like a cold wave. Voyu realized that while he was busy showing off to the world, his wife was somewhere, hurting, broken by the very people who should have respected her. And it was his fault. All this time, he had let it happen. The whispers, the insults, the cruel looks. He had ignored them, thinking they didn't matter. But now he knew it mattered, and he was going to put an end to it, right now. Years ago, Osa was just a simple village girl, living a quiet life and helping her parents on their small farm. She never imagined that one day her world would change completely. It happened when Voyu came to her village. He was from the city, rich and well-educated, there for a charity trip to help build a school. From the moment their eyes met, something special sparked between them. Osa, with her pure heart and warm smile, caught Voyu's attention in a way no fancy city girl ever had. And Voyu, with his charm and kindness, made Osa feel seen and valued for the first time. Their love grew quickly, even though everyone around them said it wouldn't work. People whispered, saying, "A rich man like him will never marry a village girl." And when Voyu's family found out, the storm truly began. His mother and sisters called Osa names, mocking her poor background and simple ways. They told Voyu he was ruining the family name by choosing her. But love made them strong. Voyu stood by Osa and promised they would face everything together. Against all odds, they got married, believing that love could conquer everything. But after the wedding, things were not as easy as they had hoped. Osa moved to the city, leaving her home and family behind. In the big house of Voyu's family, she was never treated like a wife. Instead, they looked at her like she didn't belong. His sisters laughed at her clothes. His aunts ignored her, and his mother made sure she always felt small. But through it all, Osa kept silent. She believed that if she showed them love and respect, one day they would accept her. Every insult, every cold shoulder, every cruel word, she swallowed it, hiding her pain behind a smile. She told herself it was worth it for Voyu and for the beautiful family they dreamed of building. She worked hard to fit in, trying to learn their ways and make them proud. She even planned big family gatherings, hoping to bring everyone closer. But deep inside, every day felt like a battle, and every night she cried quietly where no one could see. Still, she held on, praying that love and patience would someday melt their hard hearts and finally make her feel like she truly belonged. Osa wiped her tears and told herself to be strong, at least for her son's big day. She took a deep breath and stepped out of the kitchen, carrying the beautiful birthday cake she had worked so hard to prepare. Her hands shook, but she forced a smile, hoping to hide her pain. As she walked toward the table, trying to make this moment special for little Tovi, a woman stopped her. The woman, wearing shining gold jewelry and an expensive dress, looked Osa up and down with disgust. Then she shoved dirty plates into Osa's hands and said loudly, "Do your job, girl! Clean this up!" For a second, the room went quiet. But then laughter exploded everywhere. The guests, dressed in their fancy clothes, laughed like it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Some even clapped and pointed at Osa. And then, even worse, some children joined in. They giggled and whispered loudly, calling Osa the maid and saying, "Look at her. She's not the birthday boy's mother. She's just the servant." Their little voices felt like knives in Osa's heart. She stood there frozen, holding the dirty plates in one hand and the cake in the other, her face burning with shame. Her eyes met her son's. Little Tovi looked confused and sad, like he didn't understand why people were laughing at his mother. That look broke something deep inside Osa. All the years of silence, of swallowing insults, of hoping things would get better, it all came crashing down in that moment. She felt her heart shatter into pieces. No more. She couldn't take it anymore. This was the final straw. Osa realized that no matter how much she tried, these people would never see her as family. They would always treat her like she was less. And worst of all, they were now teaching her own child to doubt and question her worth, with tears welling up again. But this time, mixed with anger, Osa made a decision deep inside her soul. She wasn't going to let them break her anymore. Not today, not ever again. She set the cake down with shaking hands, dropped the dirty plates on the table, and took a step back, her heart pounding. Something inside her had changed forever. Voyu looked around the room and saw the laughter, the mocking faces, and his wife standing there, broken. His heart pounded in his chest. Enough was enough. He marched to the front of the hall and grabbed the microphone from the DJ. The music stopped, and the room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him, expecting another fancy toast or some proud words about the birthday. But Voyu's face was serious, his eyes burning with anger and shame. He cleared his throat and looked straight at his family, then at the guests. "I was going to make a toast today," he began, his voice steady but cold. "But I can't ignore what I just witnessed. I heard the words. I saw the laughter. I saw how you all treated my wife." The room became tense, and people shifted uncomfortably. Some even tried to smile like nothing had happened. But Voyu raised his hand to stop them. "Enough," he said sharply. "Enough of the insults. Enough of the humiliation. This woman you call a servant, this woman you laugh at, is not just my wife. She is the queen of my home, the mother of my son, the woman who stood by me when no one else did." Gasps echoed around the hall. His sisters looked away. His mother's face turned red with anger, and the guests whispered among themselves. But Voyu didn't stop. His voice grew louder, stronger. "And today, right here in front of all of you, I make it official. I declare her my queen. No more hiding, no more pretending. From now on, if you disrespect her, you disrespect me." Osa stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock. She had never heard Voyu speak like this. Her heart pounded, her tears falling freely now. But this time, they were mixed with relief and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Voyu turned to her, still holding the mic. "Osa, I am sorry. I was blind, but not anymore." The room stayed silent, every guest stunned by the unexpected turn. No one dared to laugh now. No one dared to call her a servant again, because in that moment, Voyu's words had changed everything. Voyu held the microphone tightly, his eyes scanning the room full of shocked faces. But he wasn't done yet. He took a deep breath and said in a loud, clear voice, "And to make sure no one ever forgets how much she means to me, I have decided today, in front of everyone, that I am transferring half of my properties and shares in my businesses to my wife, Osa." The hall went completely silent for a moment. You could hear a pin drop. Then gasps filled the air. People covered their mouths in shock. His mother, who had always looked down on Osa, clutched her chest and fainted on the spot. A loud thud was heard as she collapsed. His sisters turned pale like they had seen a ghost. Their eyes widened and their jaws dropped. They couldn't believe what they'd just heard. Some of the guests whispered to each other, their voices trembling. "Did he really say half of everything?" one woman asked. "Yes, he did. Half," another replied, her eyes still fixed on Voyu in disbelief. But Voyu didn't pause. He looked around again, his face firm and strong. "From today," he continued, "anyone, I don't care who you are, anyone who disrespects my wife will no longer be welcome in my home. You will not step foot in my house. You will not attend our family events. I will cut you off." The crowd gasped again. His voice echoed in the large hall. The same people who were laughing at Osa just minutes ago now stood frozen, too afraid to even meet her eyes. The proud aunt who called her a maid looked down at the floor, ashamed. Even the children stopped their jokes and clung to their parents, sensing the heavy tension in the air. Osa's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief, of healing. She looked at Voyu, her heart pounding. She had waited so long for this moment, to be seen, to be respected. And now, in front of everyone, her husband had finally given her the honor she deserved. The whole room knew that things had changed forever. No one would dare call her a servant again. No one would mock her village roots. Because now, Osa was not just the wife, she was the queen, and half the empire belonged to her. Osa stood there, frozen like a statue. Her hands trembled, and her heart beat so fast she thought it would jump out of her chest. She couldn't believe what she just heard. Was this real? Was Voyu really standing up for her in front of everyone? Before she could even move, Voyu reached out, gently took her hand, and led her to the center of the stage. The crowd made way, their eyes glued to them, shocked and silent. As Osa stood there under the bright lights, her head still bowed in disbelief, Voyu knelt down and called their son, Tovi. The little boy, confused but curious, ran up to his father. Voyu lifted him up and said loud enough for all to hear, "Tovi, look at your mother. She is no servant. She is the queen of this home. She is the woman who built everything you see around you." The hall went completely still again. Even the whispers stopped. Everyone watched as little Tovi's eyes widened. He looked at his mother, then at his father, and then back at his mother. Slowly, Tovi stretched out his arms and gave his mother the tightest hug. "I'm sorry, Mama," he whispered, his little voice breaking Osa's heart in the sweetest way. Osa couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears came streaming down her face, but these tears felt different. They were not from pain. They were not from shame. These tears were warm, powerful, freeing. For the first time in so many years, Osa felt like she was standing tall. She felt seen. She felt respected. Her heart, which had been broken so many times, started to heal right there in front of everyone. Voyu kissed her forehead softly and wrapped his arm around her shoulders, holding her close as if to say, "No one will ever hurt you again." The guests, who had once laughed and whispered behind her back, now looked down, too ashamed to meet her eyes. Osa, the woman they called a servant, now stood on that stage with her husband and son, shining like a true queen. Her tears kept flowing, but her smile grew bigger. This was her moment. This was her victory. She had reclaimed her dignity, her worth, and her place. And no one, not even the proudest of in-laws, could ever take that away from her again. The party ended in a strange silence. No more laughter, no more music. One by one, the relatives who had mocked Osa started leaving, their heads down in shame. Some of them couldn't even look at her as they walked out. Voyu's mother was helped out quietly, still too shocked to speak. His sisters left without saying goodbye, their faces pale and stiff. The grand celebration they had planned had turned into a lesson they would never forget. After that day, everything began to change. In the days that followed, Osa noticed something new. Women from the community, some of whom had once joined in the whispers, started coming to her secretly. They knocked on her door when no one was watching. They came not to mock, but to confess. One by one, they told her, "We always admired your strength, Osa. We saw how you stayed calm through every insult. We wished we had your courage." Osa listened, her heart soft but proud. For so long she had felt small and unwanted, but now she saw that many women had been watching her, learning from her silence and patience. They now looked up to her, not as a servant, but as a woman who stood tall after years of pain. At home, Voyu was no longer the man who turned a blind eye. He started making real changes. He stopped answering calls from those family members who once disrespected his wife. He made it clear that anyone who couldn't respect Osa had no place in their lives anymore. He focused on his business and on rebuilding their family in a way that made Osa feel loved and valued every single day. Osa, who had once cried behind kitchen doors, now sat at the dining table with her head held high. She and Voyu planned things together, made decisions together, and little Tovi, who once asked if his mother was a servant, now proudly told everyone, "My mama is the queen of our home." The woman who was once mocked had now become a symbol of dignity and strength, not just in her home, but in the entire community. And this time, no one dared to question her worth again. Months passed, and Osa's life looked completely different. She was no longer the woman who tried to fit in, just to be accepted. She had found her strength, and she wanted other women to feel the same. So, she started her own foundation. It was a special place where women from simple, humble homes could get support and advice on how to marry into rich, powerful families without losing who they really were. Osa wanted to help them keep their heads high, no matter how people looked down on them. Word spread fast, and many women came to her foundation, grateful for her guidance. Then came Tovy's next birthday. But this time, things were different. The guest list was much smaller. No more snobbish relatives or fake friends. Only people who truly cared for Osa and her family were invited. The atmosphere was warm and peaceful, not tense and filled with whispers like before. The house was decorated beautifully, but it was the genuine smiles and laughter that made the day special. As Osa stood in the corner, watching her son laugh with his friends and get ready to blow out his candles, she felt something deep inside her heart, pure happiness. For the first time she smiled, not because she wanted anyone's approval, but because she had finally accepted herself. She didn't need their acceptance anymore. She had found her own worth, and that was more powerful than anything else. Voyu stood by her side, holding her hand proudly, while Tovy shouted, "Mama, come and help me blow the candles." Osa walked forward, her heart full. As the candles went out and everyone clapped, she knew this was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where she was no longer just someone's wife or someone's daughter-in-law. She was Osa, strong, proud, and finally free.